man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do? I don't give a damn if you say you disapprove. I'm gonna make my move, I'm gonna make it soon. And I'll do it cause it's what I wanna fucking do. Cause all these opinions and all these positions, they come in millions, they blocking your vision. But no, you can't listen, that shit is all fiction. Cause you hold the power as long as you're dreaming.
Make it. There's no way that you make it. And maybe you can fake it, but you're never gonna make it. Are you just gonna take that? Make them take it all back. Don't tell me you believe that. Are you just gonna take that? Or will you fucking fight back? Or will you fucking fight back?
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties.
But I am here. I'm gonna have to plug in my phone to be able to look at the chat. But that's okay.
How's the sound?
How y'all doing? How's the sound?
I'm on a different device right now.
I'm on a different device right now.
All right, let's do this.
Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. Is Jesus of Nazareth a historically very...
Yes.
Now, as you know, there's not so amazing scholars out there. I think they know everything.
They
can't know
think they know
because
everything.
only Metatron knows
They can't know everything because only Metatron knows
Kip
everything.
and Dan and
So,
Joshua.
Kip and Dan and Joshua
all the rest of them.
and Derek.
I hope you're watching today.
all the
because
rest of
Metatron, the
I
actual
hope you're watching
scholar
today
of
because
YouTube,
Metatron, the
is
actual
going to,
scholar of YouTube,
be educating
is
us
going
today.
to
I don't know how much we're going to get through.
be educating
This
us
is
today.
mostly me
I don't know
just
how much we're
messing
going to get
around
through.
with my,
This is mostly me just messing around
let's
with
have
my new laptop. So let's have fun.
verifiable figure. The historicity of Jesus of Nazareth presents one of the most intriguing epistemological topics in contemporary historiography, one topic which my team and I have decided to address again on this channel, this time examining the sources extensively in the original languages. While his theological significance permeates global religious discourse, our present video will focus on the corpus examining a more secular, historical proposition. What empirical evidence substantiates the existence of a 1st century Jesus, or Yehoshua, specifically in the precise historical context of Roman-occupied Judea? Before we dive deeply into the extant evidence, I would like to spend a couple of words very briefly for maximum transparency and mutual understanding. If you wish to skip these, chapters are available down below. Everyone is welcome in the comments. Christians, atheists, agnostics, or people from other religions, I respect your freedom and thank you for being here. Feel free to share your thoughts down below. No comments will be removed. As a Christian myself, I do have a bias, and I recognize that. But that only affects my desire, not my data analysis. Throughout the research for this video, whether a piece of evidence was valid or not was solely determined by the contextual documented facts available to confirm it. Whether I like it or not is not a factor. Moreover, you can rest assured that this video essay is the effort of a full team, not just my work. And just to mention one, my lead research, for instance, who put a lot of hours into this, is not religious at all. We, as a team, have maintained a common goal to apply guards against selective bias in as much as it is humanly possible, and kept each other in check. We will now reveal all of the historically ascertainable evidence that mentions Jesus Christ. We'll address the concept of contemporary mentions and the idea of independent sources. We will also debunk all those positions pertaining to the Christ myth theory that are not congruent with a correct and professional interpretation of the historical evidence. Likewise, we will call out those positions maintained by apologists that don't fit our chosen methodological framework. We'll dignify any statement made empirically so that hopefully this video will act as a conduit to a more clear, unbiased, and coherent presentation. Feel free to pause the video in the next screen to examine the table of contents. Our methodological framework today will be organized the following way. First, we'll have a comprehensive analysis of the sources from both Roman and Jewish historians, writers who had no stake in promoting Christianity and often viewed it with hostility. Second, we'll analyze the contested issue of dating these sources and their independence from Christian influence. Subsequently, we'll undertake a meticulous analysis and critical historiographical consideration to establish the veracity and provenance of ancient testimonials within the ancient Roman imperial apparatus. Finally, we'll evaluate the convergence of the current scholarly consensus, incorporating perspectives from supporters, skeptics, apologists, and mythicists regarding the cumulative weight of the available historical evidence. Convergence in textual analysis and historical reliability presents us with both Christian and non-Christian evidence supporting the existence of Jesus. For the purposes of this video, we will focus on the non-Christian sources, as sources such as the Apostle Paul, the Gospels proper, or any statement made by people who already believe by faith that Jesus is God could be accused of being partial.
I cannot see myself
when doing this.
Okay.
I might have to put in a second screen. I wonder if I can use my little mini Apple
Jiggy.
That's the second screen.
And bias. We do this to establish a basis of intellectual honesty in our research, but regardless of this parameter, we are still left with a plethora of material to work with. I'll substantiate this statement with more details on sections 10 and 11. Let's now define and delineate what sources we have. The non-Christian sources we have as evidence of Jesus' historicity are twofold. They come from Roman and Jewish authors. A dialectical analysis shows that these sources frequently manifest explicit antipathy towards Christianity. If they had a reason to question or doubt the existence of Jesus, the founder of Christianity, it would have benefited them to state it and use it. Yet, no one does. This is a very important contextual clue. Historically, Christianity shook the foundations of Roman theology and pagan worship within the empire, thus alerting the authorities, causing a harsh imperial response towards the new rising religion. That is why this is a fundamental socio-political factor to consider, so keep it in mind as we carefully review the words of the ancients. There are usually two main counter-arguments used to discredit the sources we're about to examine, with the aim of either rejecting them a priori or to at least significantly diminish their historical validity and relevance. One, the question of whether these authors wrote independently of Christian thought or influence, and two, the question of whether or not these sources are contemporary to Jesus' life. So, are these independent sources and are these contemporary sources to Jesus' life? These logical structures are monumental red flags. They are logical fallacies that should not be taken seriously by any historian, scholar or amateur, Christian apologetic or atheist alike, as they operate under a false correlation paradigm. We will address both arguments, counterattack and dismantle them to the very core on sections 10 and 11 respectively. Furthermore, in section 11 I will demonstrate why the evidence we do have for Jesus is in fact exceptional. There are multiple ancient sources that mention Jesus in a variety of ways, degrees of precision and contextual relevance. For this systematic analysis we will divide these into two categories: dubious sources and certain sources.
Honestly, man, I really
wish Karen Bertuzzi was more like Metatron.
I would love Karen Bertuzzi.
I would love.
Right, hold on. I'm gonna go get another.
Right, hold on. I'm gonna go get another device. I'm gonna see if I can get this to work. Let's see what I can do. Can I use this?
Hold on.
Okay, hold on.
You okay, Frank?
You okay, Frank? Let me bother you for 1 second.
Put this over here.
No, can you put this over here? What's the response for that over here? I'm sorry. Oh, it's dead. So I won't even find out for a while.
The first category includes those sources that mention someone that we think could be him, but we are not sure. They could be valid, but they have a lower reliability coefficient. The certain sources are instead those that without question mention him and have a higher degree of verifiability. For our approach to Vitae Chronic, we should begin with possibly the earliest mention or reference to Jesus. Now, this is an indirect one related to a citation by Thallus, a Greek language historian from 52 BC. Thallus is quoted in a fragment of the History of the World by Sextus Iulius Africanus, who wrote instead between the 2nd and 3rd century AD. We read, open quotes, "The most terrible darkness descended over all the earth. The stones were broken by an earthquake, and much of Judea and the rest of the region were disturbed. Thallus, in the 3rd book of the Histories, defines this darkness as a solar eclipse. As for me, this seems inexplicable." Close quotes. According to several patristic scholars, the eclipse reported by Thallus, which another classical author, Phlegon of Dralles, refers to the reign of Tiberius, the 2nd Roman emperor after Octavianus Augustus, and it would coincide with the darkness reported in the Gospels concurrent with Jesus' crucifixion. The testimony, however, while being compelling and evocative, is objectively rather fragmentary from a scholarly perspective, and the fact that Thallus speaks of that episode and its manifestation in Judea doesn't necessarily mean he also cites the figure of Jesus, who in any case is missing from the fragment. So we should probably identify this as more of a support of the idea of the historicity of Jesus by indirectly reinforcing the validity of the Gospels through an external mention of an episode that we do find in the Gospel and we're familiar.
Can you use the tablet as a secondary screen? There has to be a way, right? Let's see. Let's see. Can I turn it into screen 2? That's the question. No. Cancel. Let's try a different one. Let's try a different source. Webcam, audio, image. Display capture? Oh. No, that's not going to work at all. That's all. Oops. How do I undo what I just did? There we go. Okay.
Familiar with. Definitely not a strong piece of evidence, but definitely worth a mention. The testimony of the Stoic philosopher of Syrian origin Mara bar Serapion, dated by some mythicists to the 2nd century, but more correctly probably dating to 73 AD, is definitely a much more relevant piece of information. It reads as follows, open quotes, "What advantage did the Athenians gain from killing Socrates? They received famine and death. Or the inhabitants of Samos for burying Pythagoras. In a moment their entire country was covered by sand. Or the Jews for killing their wise king. From that time their kingdom was taken from them." Now this reference is generally interpreted as to mean Jesus, the wise king. But is it him? Well, there are two reasons as to why this could very well be the case. Now, the first one is something that anyone who is familiar with the Gospels probably immediately thought, which is the idea of what was written on top of the cross of Jesus as reported in the Gospels. So, in ri, which is Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. In Latin, Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum. This would be a strong correlation with the Gospels, but of course, if you don't want to take the Gospels into account, then there is something else, and that is much stronger from a secular standpoint. The word wise. You see, the adjective wise has been used by ancient non-Christian sources to describe him on multiple occasions, not just here, as some mythicists falsely claim. In some cases, this could be done on purpose, but oftentimes I think it's because people just repeat what someone else says, but don't actually spend time in the sources. I will, of course, demonstrate this with actual textual parallelism on section 5, so the next section. However, as it has often been pointed out, we should also spend a couple of words to try and decipher what it actually means when the author says their kingdom was taken from them as a result of killing the wise king. You see, the problem with that is that the kingdom of Judea had been taken from the Jews before Jesus' death, which would create a strange contrast in this. Unless, as a possible different interpretation, Mara was not referring to the initial Roman occupation, but was instead referring broadly to the sack of Jerusalem in 70 AD. The latter would indeed be quite close to him chronologically. Is it really talking about the Roman occupation, or is it talking about the rather disastrous event of the sack of Jerusalem, and creating a link, similarly to the previous statements, with Socrates and Pythagoras as a sort of causal link? You did this, and then this is what happened. If we compare the other events and the level of catastrophic repercussion, which seems to be the theme intended by the author, the latter does appear to fit more neatly. But this, of course, is only speculative. The first undeniable reference outside the Gospel referring to the figure of Jesus is in Jewish antiquities, specifically Jewish Antiquities 1863-64, known among church history scholars as the Testimonium Flavianum. Josephus, a Jewish historian writing around 93-94 AD, mentions Jesus in two passages in his Antiquities of the Jews. One passage, known as the Testimonium Flavianum, has been partially interpolated by later Christian scribes, but many scholars believe that it contains an authentic core describing Jesus as a teacher who was crucified under Pilate, in Latin Pontius Pilatus. The most common translation of the passage reads as follows, open quotes, "At this time there was Jesus, a wise man, if indeed one should call him a man, for he was a doer of extraordinary deeds, a teacher of men, who received the truth with pleasure, and he attracted many Jews and many of the Greeks also. This was the Christ, and when Pilate, upon the accusation of the principal men among us, punished him by crucifixion, those who had first loved him did not cease, for he appeared to them on the third day, living again, the divine prophets having foretold these and thousands of other wonders concerning him. And even now the tribe of Christians, named after him, has not died out." First, note that I stressed in red the words wise, for obvious reasons, but also the word accusation. Now we will come back to what the word accusation actually means from a Roman legal standpoint, as that will give massive credibility to a passage that is often attacked by mythicists. That is because they haven't studied Roman law. Now this about the accusation is something you may have heard before, so keep watching in order to get a proper, correct interpretation. So the YouTube will...
Hey Thomas, what do you think of the
My new laptop.
my new laptop?
It's probably
what we'll be
doing
when I'm traveling.
Not that I'm going to
Not
travel
that I'm
a
going
lot.
to travel a lot, but
Now I can.
now I can. God, I can't see Jack. I don't know. Let me see.
How's it sound?
How's it sound?
Wise. First wise king, now wise man. It is possible that wise was indeed a descriptive term commonly used to refer to him, and you will see that it will come back again. Now, the Testimonium Flavianum is valid. However, it's a problematic contribution, and that is because manuscript copies of Jewish antiquities are all from the 11th century or later, and it's practically certain that they underwent interpolation by Christian copyists. In simple terms, Christian monks added Christian concepts into the original core, and these Josephus did not write. Logically, even though this unfortunately takes away from the power and historical weight of this testimony, a solution would be to identify and remove those interpolated sections in order to return the passage to its unaltered origins, rectifying its full validity. But how can we do that? Now, there are several phrases that could be considered to be incriminated. The sentence, "if indeed one should call him a man," "this was the Christ," the reference to the resurrection. These are evidently the results of Christian thought, and a non-Christian Jew like
What's
me
echoing?
would
Is it
say this
me or is
just
it
a matter of deductive logic. Now,
Metatron?
because of these obviously apocryphal elements, for a long time a current of scholars claimed that the Testimonium Flavianum was a forgery in its entirety, inserted into Jewish antiquities with the intent to strengthen the historicity of Jesus' figure. Now, this is an overreaction, and there is no academic justification whatsoever for such a categorical rejection. Also because, as we said before, no one questioned the historicity of Jesus.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
An honest interpretation is that the original core was authentic. However, this is clearly just a logical connection, and it's not enough to demonstrate that the rest of the testimony is real. But
Okay.
it doesn't matter, because
How's
we have
that? Is
something
the
else.
echo
You
gone?
see, the proof of its original core and what it actually said came with the 1971 publication by Professor Shlomo Pines of a different version of the testimonium, emerging from the Book of the Title, a work in Arabic by Melkite Bishop Agapius, written in the 10th century AD. Agapius, who cites Josephus, reports the same testimonium, but this time it is
How's the
indeed
game?
missing those sections with think were later additions by Christian monks, giving us a fantastic opportunity to spot the differences. So let's do that. Let's read it. Open quotes. At this time there lived a wise man called Jesus, and his conduct was irreproachable, and he was known as a virtuous man. And many among the Jews and other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and die, and those who had become his disciples did not abandon their loyalty to him. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion, and that he was alive. Consequently, they believed that he was the Messiah, of whom the prophets had told wonders. Close quotes. In light of Agapius' source, it can be affirmed that the Testimonium Flavianum was present indeed in the original text of Jewish antiquities, albeit in a different form from what has been transmitted to us. The Christian monks, as we were saying, added sections to strengthen the concept of his divinity, but they were not trying to confirm his historicity, which was never in question, whether by Christians, pagans, Jews, or Muslims. No one questioned his historicity, in period. The Arabic citation is much closer to what must have been Josephus' original text. Moreover, and this is really the frosting on the cake, it's appropriate to remember that Jesus is mentioned on another passage of Jewish Antiquities 29:1. Now, for context, this passage speaks specifically about the condemnation by stoning by the
Okay, my mic's now on. There shouldn't be another mic going on. My echo's gone. Check 1 2, check 1 2.
Sanhedrin, presided by a Sadducean high priest by the name of Ananus, of a certain, open quotes, brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, close quotes. Clearly, James the Just. The presence of explicit references to Jesus in Jewish antiquities is very important for the study of the historicity of Jesus, as it demonstrates that according to a non-Christian historian who lived in a time very close to the narrated events, Jesus was not a fictional character, but a real historical person. Now, against this, the scholar Alice Wheely is often quoted as the one who demonstrated that there was no prior version of the Testimonium Flavianum, so the one originating in the Arabic text, and supposedly she did this with a deep, careful analysis. But was it careful? How about we review it? Now, to be clear, she doesn't deny that the Arabic and Syriac versions exist. She does say they do, but she denies their authorships in connection with Josephus. She says instead that they were written by Eusebius of Caesarea. Now, this is ultimately incorrect, as I'll demonstrate in a second. But before I do that, I would like to finish fleshing out the point of disagreement before taking it down. Another person who is often mentioned is Paul Hopper, who has done a grammatical analysis of the text, coming to the conclusion that the writing style in the Testimonium Flavianum is in fact different from what is normally used by Josephus. He states that Josephus uses verbs differently, the structure is different, and therefore Josephus did not write the passage, and he agrees with Wheely on the matter. Finally, G.J. Goldberg, who has also examined the passage, argues that it was plagiarized and formed based on the story of a mass contained in the Gospel of Luke. Ken Olson and Louis Feldman also believe that a Christian like Eusebius is the author of the Testimonium Flavianum and not Josephus. So, to summarize, there are 5 authors here, 5 scholars that believe that Josephus was not the original author and that the Testimonium Flavianum is not authentic, and they're all incorrect. First, the points that Olson advances to postulate Eusebius' authorship of the Testimonium Flavianum are fallacious. 1. According to Olson, the phrase wise man present in the Testimonium is characteristic of Eusebius. He uses this to argue that Josephus didn't write the passage, but Eusebius did. And in order to strengthen this, he uses the expression used by Eusebius, open quotes, a magician or sorcerer rather than a wise man, close quotes, to connect it to the usage of the expression wise man.
You know, I understand that that Metatron is a linguist, and I'm pretty sure he has his doctorate. I'm not 100% sure on that. I know he at least has his master's. I'm very curious how his doctorate in a general linguistics, and I think his specialization is Japanese, measures up against the way that Kip and Dan understand things.
Similarly, Orson treats this phrase in Greek, paradoxical works, which is present in the testimonium, as evidence once again of Eusebius' contamination, because it recurs in his writings. Now, we have already addressed that wise man as a possible reference to Jesus is present in Mara bar Serapion, which they completely ignored. Nonetheless, and this is something they will not tell you when they try to debunk the Testimonium Flavianum, the reality is that the expression wise man was absolutely part of Eusebius' vocabulary and written expression repertoire. He also uses the term wise man in Jewish Antiquities 10:237, where he speaks of the prophet Daniel. So the usage of the term wise man, wise king are absolutely coherent with Josephus' writing style and vocabulary choices, as we could see, and it cannot be used to categorically state or postulate the authorship of the Testimonium Flavianum at the hands of Eusebius. To add insult to injury, the exact phrase paradoxical works is used by Josephus to indicate the miracles performed by the prophet Elijah in Jewish Antiquity 348 and 9182, thus being attested in this author well before Eusebius of Caesarea, which completely defeats the aforementioned propositions. Cornelius Tacitus, on his Annals, mentions the crucifixion of Christus at the hands of Pontius Pilate. This is considered one of the most important non-Christian references, as Tacitus was a careful historian who was also generally...
The general problem here, though, is that outside of Eusebius, and possibly, who were we just talking about? I mean, Tactius could be argued to be just be speaking about Christians. So maybe Thallus, maybe Marabar. I'm surprised they didn't go with. Well, okay, but if we go with Josephus, we have to worry about people inserting our understanding of Jesus into it after the fact.
hostile to Christianity. The pertinent excerpt, composed circa 116 AD, demonstrates remarkable historiographical sophistication in its presentation. Its relevancy has been called into question based on the interpolation hypothesis. Now, such notion has no basis whatsoever, and here is why. The figure of Jesus appears in Tacitus' Annals, published between 114 and 120 AD, with its decidedly acerbic, pejorative, and unflattering description of Christianity, which certainly cannot suggest a corrupted or interpolated source at the hands of the Christians. If anything, it militates.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you do have, I don't think the criterion of embarrassment is a good criterion.
Against the possibility of Christian interpolation. Open quotes. The founder of this sect, the Christians, Christ, had suffered the supreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius, by order of the procurator Pontius Pilate. Momentarily repressed, the fatal superstition broke out again, not only in Judea, the origins of this evil, but in Rome itself. Close quotes. Tacitus, Annals 1544. So Tacitus calls Christianity exitiabilis superstitio, a fatal destructive superstition. Moreover, as we could read, it indicates Judea as the originem eius malis, so the origin of its evil, so the sect from his point of view. And this is where I'm gonna double down on a point that I mentioned earlier on. I once again repeat, and this is pivotal, the historicity of Jesus was not an issue at any time during the first millennium, so there was simply no motivation for an alleged Christian scribe to insert a line in Tacitus' Annals attesting to the bare fact of Christ's existence and execution. Hence, to interpret it that way is a modernist and anachronistic take, and it's one of the...
I love it when he talks like that. Give me 1 second, guys. I am going to move my... There's a reason why I'm awake right now. I want to move my laundry into the dryer. Be right back. I don't have anything set up on this one, so you're just going to be looking at my wall. And yes, this is my dad's laundry first. And now I'm going to put my laundry for the week.
the reasons why we always have to apply metacognitive analysis and analytical approaches to the study of the ancient sources. Several characteristics make this reference significant for our historical analysis. First, the prosopographical details demonstrate remarkable accuracy. Tacitus correctly identifies the imperial reign. This granular administrative knowledge suggests access to official records rather than mere hearsay or Christian propaganda, which he would have not given any weight to nor believed anyways. He hated Christians. All of this also points to proficiency in regards of the historian rather than incompetence, as incompetent would the historian be to just repeat hearsay coming from the Christians. All of that without even confirming the accuracy of the statement that someone like Jesus Christ existed. A historian? This is the part where we can identify and delineate correctly the false narrative pushed by mythicists when they say that all of these sources, and the ones we still have to finish, are all not independent sources of Christian thought. Because what that would mean is that all of these professional ancient historians didn't know how to do their jobs, since writing down hearsay is utter incompetence. And even the most basic utilization of Occam Razor would guard you against thinking that ancient historians didn't know how to be historians. At that point, I must say that I believe that these historians just repeated Christian hearsay, even though a lot of them had access to actual imperial archives, is a matter of believing it by faith. The evidence does not support such a take. I'll flesh out this point even more on section 10. Tacitus' methodological approach.
I don't think we're going to do all 10 sections. If we do, it would have to be on another day. This is mostly, like I said, me just testing out my new computer and getting Streamlabs set up here. I really was going to buy StreamYard, but it's $100 a month, man. I can't do it. I just financially can't do that. Things are better for me right now, but it's still too pricey to do that.
As evidence in his other works, particularly the Germania and history, demonstrates an ability to evaluate sources critically. His position as a senior Roman official, consul suffectus and proconsul of Asia, would have given him
We'll go about 10 more minutes, and then I'm going to go work out and then go to bed.
access to imperial archives and official documentation, such as the, for example, Commentari Principis or the Acta Senatus. To think that he even needed to just repeat Christian propaganda about the historicity of Jesus is utter nonsense and does not take into account how good ancient historians were at their job. However, for consistency and honesty in our approach, various historiographical caveats warrant consideration. The manuscript tradition is relatively late, with the earliest copy dating to the 11th century, which creates a sort of temporal gap. Still, the passage's authenticity is generally accepted within serious scholarly consensus. And on that note, I would like to now read from Latin scholar Norma Miller about Tacitus' passage, open quotes. If stylistic criteria mean anything at all, the chapter was written either by Tacitus or by a very skillful imitator of his style. The digression of the author, the resumption of the main theme by igitur, the tone of exitiabilis superstitio, as well as the vocabulary and sentence structure, are most plausibly produced by the historian himself and not by a later interpolator. Close quotes. Worth of note also the passage's integration when it comes to the broader narrative about Nero's scapegoating of Christian during the fire of Rome of 64 AD, which also demonstrates organic compositional unity. Open quotes. Therefore, to scotch the rumor, Nero substituted as culprits and punished with the utmost refinements of cruelty a class of men loathed for their vices, whom the crowd styled Christians, Christianos. Christus, the founder of the name, auctor nominis, had undergone the death penalty in the reign of Tiberius, by sentence of the procurator, procuratorem Pontius Pilatus, and a pernicious superstition, exitiabilis superstitio, was checked for the moment, only to break out once more, not merely in Judea, the home of the disease, but in the capital itself, where all things horrible or shameful in the world collect and find a vogue. Close quotes. Now, there is a considerable body of literature on this short passage in Tacitus, with the vast majority of scholars agreeing that it gives authentic information about the historical Jesus. Mythicists often argue that if the reference in this passage to Christ is genuine, then it would still not be an independent testimony of the existence of historical Jesus, because Tacitus would have heard this from Christians, or it would have been common knowledge at the
Yeah, that's what I was arguing. Clearly, I'm a Christian and a Catholic, but yeah.
time. In other words, what they are stating is that the historian, Tacitus, is now just repeating Christian propaganda. Now, the problem with that is that Cornelius Tacitus is widely regarded as one of the greatest Roman historians by modern scholars. Ask anyone. A claim of incompetence on his end is unfathomable. And I can't believe I have to say this, but you're either one of the greatest historians ever, or you are incompetent writing stuff without even checking it, just because people say it. The two are mutually exclusive. Pliny the Younger, the Roman governor of Bithynia et Pontus, now in modern Turkey, wrote a letter to Roman Emperor Trajan, or Trajanus, in 112 AD, and asked for counsel on dealing with the early Christians. Now let's review together this very interesting piece of administrative evidence. Open quotes. It is my custom, sir.
But again, this is evidence that Christians exist. It's not evidence that Jesus existed.
you in all cases where I do not feel sure for who can better direct my doubts or inform my ignorance. I have never been present at any legal examination of the Christians, and I do not know, therefore, what are the usual penalties passed upon them, or the limits of those penalties, or how searching and inquiry should be made. Those who deny that they were or had been Christians and called upon the gods in the usual formula, reciting the words after me, those who suffered incense and wine before your image, which I had given orders to be brought forward for this purpose, together with the statues of the deities, all such I consider should be discharged, especially as they cursed the name of Christ, which, it is said, those who are really Christians cannot be induced to do. Important part. But they declared that the sum of their guilt or their error only amounted to this, that on a stated day they had been accustomed to meet before daybreak and to recite a hymn among themselves to Christ, as though he were a god. Close quotes. Now, apart from the fact that I personally find this very intriguing because it tells us how early Christians met. So the meetings of
I agree. That to me is the more intriguing part of this.
early Christianity. But apart from that, there is a mention of Christ, and then he says, as though he were a god. Now, once again, this is an official, this is a governor, a professional, and he's writing a letter to the emperor, and he's just repeating hearsay from the Christians. Not to mention, I actually find it interesting that he says, as though he were a god, which kind of underlines the fact that, yeah, he doesn't believe that Jesus was a god, but he doesn't have a problem thinking that he's a man, or that he existed historically. He doesn't question that. Lucian of Samosata, an important Hellenized Syrian satirist, rhetorician, and also a valid source in this discussion. Let's read this passage first and then we discuss it. Open quotes. Those poor people have convinced themselves that they are completely mortal and will live for eternity. Therefore, they despise death, and most surrender themselves willingly. Moreover, their first legislator convinced them that they are all brothers to one another, after they abandoned the Greek gods, having transgressed all at once, and they worship that same crucified sophist and live according to his laws. Close quotes. This is once again one of those testimonies that mythicists attack by saying, oh, he probably was just repeating the words of Christians. But now the layers of historians and ancient people and writers that keep mentioning Christ but allegedly are not doing any source checking keeps piling up, and we are literally getting to a conspiracy theory level. Next.
Okay, we're going to stop there for now. This is a very good video. When I have another free day, this is going to be a busy week for me. When I have another free night, we're going to do the finish of this video. Oh, crap. I'm so tired. And then we're going to do his next video, which is a follow-up video, which kind of fills in the gaps of everything that he's not saying here. But it seems like I got my audio working, so it looks like we're good. So now we can do shows, live streams more often, because I can now do them when I'm not here at home. The other thing going on is I'm looking forward to reading Absolute Flash. I haven't read it yet. I hope it's going to be good. If you're not watching Daredevil, please watch it. It's a great show, and we need more shows like that. Daredevil Born Again, that is. All right, that's it. Everybody, good night. I don't have an outro thing here on this computer set up like I did with the other one. Let's see. What can I do? Oh, let's see. We'll play Nefex. All right. Have a good night. Enjoy some Nefex. Close up.
Let's go. I can see my future and it's looking bright. Not used to the light, I was born at night. But I'm used to a fight, not a new sight. Left, right, everybody roll the dice. No regrets when I finally leave. I'll finally be the final, be a better me. My destiny is to invest in me. A quest to be the best, yeah, I'll let you free. From a world that's been feeling so wounded. I got dreams and they feel so lucid. I got dreams that they think are stupid. It's alright, sit back as I do this. I don't take this life for granted, my mind's expanding. It's time for a fight, commanding the war. I want more, yeah, I said I want more. Took a life full of hooks, time to even the score.
One life left, so I gotta make it count. Two bloody ends, work hard just to build it now. Three more doubts in my head, try to tear me down, but I won't let it show.